Alrighty. Hello guys, welcome to Game X. It's Penguins here from the Wanpans Armory, and I am super excited to be back. Technically I'm here, but visually. But you all know who I am. So in that case, once again, welcome again back to Game X. And here I am with my other suit of armor, kind of a little bit more flashier. So I got a wonderful chance to rent the studio out from Faulty Logic. Thank you, Dan, for giving me this really cool place to use. And so, last year, what we did is that we did a session on how do you put on armor. And on this session, I kind of figured out, let's do a little bit something fun, because I'm not in front of you. I'm not in front of you really kind of talking to put all these on. So it would be kind of funny, or at least it would be useful for you guys, if I were to play with any of my weapons, my toys, pretty much, and to really show you guys what do I do with them, how do I pose with them, and ultimately, if you were handed, let's say, a weapon or an object and you don't really know what to do with it, how do you look at it systematically as things that you can use? Sometimes, at a con, your friend may be, let's say, hey Les, can you hold on to mine and I'll hold on to yours? Weapons, and then you pose with it. Or let's just say if you have a weird object and you don't know what to do with it, there could be things you can do to it. It is all up to your imagination or up to what your character really do. So, let's get started. I guess there's so much stuff to play with. Okay, I guess first and foremost, we're going to be starting off with the more fun ones. Let's say one of the great swords. Oh. This thing is chunky. Alrighty, so. Whew, I'm tired. Oh my god, I'm tired. Alrighty, so. What exactly is this thing? This is essentially the Ultra Greatsword from the video game Dark Souls 3. And it's a Lothric Knight Ultra Greatsword. A lot of times, especially in con, you are definitely going to be facing, big stuff like this, because these are cool, and movies always try to make you have cool stuff. So let's just say you get a really, really big sword like this, and what's happened is most of the time people make it look very two-dimensional. Because the point is that if you have a really big sword, you have a really big front profile. What a front profile is that? This is the front profile, which is you're looking at the front of the blade, but this is also not the choppy side of the blade. So a lot of times people actually turn the sword this way when they shoot. What does that mean? If you're looking at a weapon like this, which is really, really big, it's cool. But then when you're trying to get a photograph ready, what happened is people try to turn the sword like that. It's the same with single-handed weapons, spears, and even worse if you have a gun, then it gets even more or less material to look at. As a photo, you're supposed to be, well, at least you're trying to convey as much information as you can to the viewers. What does that mean? Every single photo, there's going to be the positive space. Positive space, it's you, your weapon, anything that you are taking up space. And then there are negative space. What exactly are negative space? Well, the wall, the sky, the floor. These are all negative spaces. So when we're getting into positive and negative space, what we have to do is that we have to utilize them in a way that it creates that story. So how do we do that? We're going to be using a couple of different proportion techniques and also angles. Now, so let's go with the first one. Negative and positive. What is my positive right now? Me, the sword, and whatever is sticking out like that. So what does it mean? If I want to, let's say, convey let's say a motion or convey a feeling that I'm very static, very stable, very strong, very just noble and charismatic and just knightly. Then of course I want to stand up nice and straight and tall, and maybe even put my leg together. Now what does it mean? The focal point is on my body. And also the background is my sword. but I don't take up a lot of space because this is a very static motion. But let's just say if I worked, so that doesn't really give you too much. It's a very calming kind of environment. Whereas if I start spreading my leg out, what does it mean? It gets a little bit more exciting. There's more stuff to look at. You're taking up more space. I think my plume is falling. Good enough. Okay, cool. So what happened? Oh, my plume is falling. Ah, forget it. So what happened is that if I'm going to be taking up more space, then it gets more exciting. Just putting my hand up compared to this, it conveys a different feeling. From here, it's still a very, kind of cool static pose, or it could be like that. You see how that really dramatically changed the feeling of what you're going to get. So now, another thing is that is just playing with your body. Your body still conveys a lot of different feelings based on how well you move, right? And so there are many times where you can kind of create too little of an information. Now, what does it mean? If you create less information, then it kind of creates a mood that is more subtle and more secretive and more just mysterious. Example, I'm going to put So I'm going to put my sword down for a second and I'm going to try something else. Yep, we're still good. Okay, cool. So, in the feeling of, let's say, using our body posture in terms of how do we make ourselves seem bigger or smaller. If I'm going to be standing like that, less royal, less fancy, less information. More information. Even less information is I crouch down and I get low and I get low and I turn into a little ball. That is even less information, but what does it do? It still conveys a different feeling. So it doesn't mean you have to take up more space. It doesn't mean you have to take up less space. It means the positive and the negative, what does it do? What feeling does it convey? That is how it kind of works in photography. It works the same in still photography, or it also works the same if you do videos. It gets more fun in video and it gets a hell of more time. So, what does it mean? If it's a video format, then I can start doing turns, smooth, or then I can do stuff, right? In a video, I can still turn, and that will be if you're doing a motion capture, or at least like in your photography where you take multiple different photos. In that image, if you were to spin in place, like so, it conveys just that image, just that information. Or I can turn sideways and back. What does it mean? More flowiness, more activation of the negative and positive to create more energy. Whew. This arm is really tiring. So, getting into it is that what does your character do? What does your character convey? What should your character convey? Do you know? Do you not know? If you don't know, because there are some characters that are meant as, let's say, one image. You don't know what they do. And there are characters that have a whole lot of information that they do everything. So now, it get into is, what is the feeling you want to portray? If it's by yourself, if it's in the shoot, or if it is going to be, let's say, a set of images you want to try to capture, imagine yourself in that character. Cosplay, essentially, is we put on a costume and we become the display of the character, right? So which is why when I portray as a knight, I'm always standing really quite high up, and I'm usually quite everywhere. But overall, I just want to convey the feeling that I'm here, be a presence, and I'm just here to make sure you see me. Because it's cool and it's flashy and I'm really tired. Because it's a lot of armor, right? So I want to make sure I get the most out of my con experience. And I'm sure you are too. So, let's say if your character are going to be someone that is going to be relatively, shy and reserved, then you want to make sure you present maybe less information compared to someone who is more flamboyant, then you present more information. That will come down to what weapon you're using. So, What else? Okay. Okay. Hold on. Wait. So, what happened there? This weapon in the hand is essentially just, it's at home, it's really light. The mood that you're trying to portray with your weapon, imagine if it was a real living weapon. Well, I mean, not alive, but material. If your weapon is actually looks very heavy and chunky, you want to display yourself in a really big, wide stance to carry that weight onto you. Without even swinging or posing with your weapon, imagine you're holding that weapon on your hand. What should it feel like? If it's heavy and chunky, just ground yourself, become the foundation for your prop. Creating that positive and negative space around you to take that image. Either this, or I can go behind myself, or I can even stab it down on the ground and still convey that message. Your weapon will become a part of you. It is not with you. It is you. Because you're conveying the entire message. So, let's talk about Ultra Great Sword. The weight is a very fun little element to play with. It is very heavy, very chunky, or you can rest on your body, like, you know, Aquarius, Gus, and everyone else in between. You can also do that. Really cool. So, if you're resting your hand many times, here's another thing. If you're holding your hand in one sword, you're balancing on the other, makes sense. It's believable. What happened to this one? Your other finger. So, many times people were to hold your hand out like you're holding a kiwi, or like a little ball kind of thing, because gauntlets are cool, because I'm enticing you to get here. You build that foreground and background with your hand. You can use it, there's nothing wrong with it. But you see a lot of people use it anyway, so it becomes a thing that just looks very kind of cliche. Doesn't really do much, because it doesn't show the story. If I'm here, I'm holding this way, what else can I do? How do I build the foreground and the background? Remember, as a weapon, there's length. Present information based on what you want to show. I can present it with my palm. And with my palm, I can still hold it down like that. Like that. That information, the foreground of your palm, and the background is your sword. Or I can even hold it this way, like that. Showing it that is more engaging. The more close-up you have, the more dynamic the front and the back is, the more exciting the image becomes. So that is the second point of a big weapon. If you hold it really close up, you can't really see, but you know, it's good enough. So there we go. Now the fun thing is that let's just say, well, I'm kind of tired with like, you know, taking photos or videos of just like me holding it, stopping, nothing like that. And that is where you can get into a lot of fun when you swing your weapon around. If you don't know what to do, have fun with your weapon. Interact with it. Make sure that you develop a dialogue between this and this for you. Well, you guys, right? So if I have a really big ultra weapon, I can welcome this way. Yeah, okay. So if you don't know what you can do, never hold your sword straight, because that is kind of boring. And a lot of people does it. Yeah, if you want to convey a feeling, you can. So I'm going to put this down and use a shorter one because I don't have too much space. This thing is really, really big. Okay, I'm going to use that instead. So, once again, even a light, super lighter sword. So once again, if you held another weapon, you don't really know what to do with it, then this is where you want to really try to swing it around. Imagine the weight. Imagine the feeling. It's a massive sledgehammer. You're literally chopping down monsters with these kind of things. So if you were to really play around with it, how do you do it? when you swing, what body parts do you use? Are you rotating your whole body to get that motion? Once again, it's the movement of excitement. And once you chop, do you turn? Can you turn? Can you turn? When you start doing that, the photographer might actually just come up with really interesting kind of motion to want to shoot. So you can actually have fun with the photographer as well. If you don't really know what you want to shoot, start swinging your sword around. When you do that, you can actually tell your photographer, hey, run around me, let's say 2 laps. Just point the camera towards me and just run around. I'm going to do a couple of swings, and they can shoot me. And that's a fun part. These are getting to things that are unexpected. You don't know what happened, but it would look damn good. Maybe. Or you just slip, fall. One warning, if you are going to swing your weapon around, make sure you don't hit your photographer. I'm going to try to swing this around. I'm going to take these gauntlets off because they're kind of restricted. So 1 second. I'm going to take this with me. Alrighty. So once again, I'm going to start swinging this around. This time I'm going to be wearing my very simple leather dueling gauntlet. I do actually find these are actually very comfortable. So let's start from here. We're going to draw the weight down to show the emphasis of your weapon. You're posing with it even as a start, and you're going to be, if you want to launch an attack from your body language, you can move your body up to give it a good swing and a good swing. When you're swinging, swing towards the camera. Create that depth of vision, like that, like that. You're creating more information. Instead of chopping straight, you can actually chop down. So imagine you're scooping in front of the camera. This creates a lot of field vision and a lot of excitement. You can do a couple of them, like that, or even doing more angular, and see what you get from it. See how much information you can get. Chop it down, and around. And, if you can, do a couple of thrusts. Thrust, and thrust. Move your body. Rotate your body. Keep using that as a dynamic. And see how it works. By just doing a couple of these, you're going to notice that, one, you're very tired. Whew. And second, it's a whole lot of fun because you are actually interacting with your weapon. When you are using your weapon, engaging with your weapon, having fun with your weapon, you want to make sure that you build your prop pretty sturdy. Because if you build a prop that's kind of stable, nothing really to do, and just kind of like, oh, don't swing it, it's going to break, you're going to have less fun with it. So I like to overbuild my weapon because I like to just bash it around and stuff like that, right? So that's mostly enough for a great weapon. Whew. And so, going on with the next. The next is going to be the classic sword and dagger in hand. Because now you're emphasizing on different body language. You know what? I guess I will use my arming sword. And I'm going to use my Chinkadea. Chinkadea is a 5-finger sword, and that's a really thick Venetian 17th century sword. Now, many weapons you will find in cosplay are pretty slender. Could be, because now in anime-wise, more and more weapons are starting to look more realistic. But the issue is that there is still kind of fat and still kind of heavy presence. Because they still have to display what the heck is happening in the story, right? Now, what do we do with these? These are small, there's not a lot of weight. You could still play around. Once again, first rule, positive and negative. How do we portray that? So these are very close to us. There's not a lot of emotions we can invoke. Aside from, you can easily swing it around to create a lot of dynamics with it, right? So, when we're creating negative and positive with 2 different weapons, you want to keep them on opposite sides. More things you want to do. So of course, ultimately, hold it up. You get more information. Look at that. That's a lot of information you're drawing up. You're taking a lot of field with not moving a lot. And so, what you want to do is that, well, you don't always want to hold it out unless you want to praise the sun, unless you want to do that. Or, on hindsight, what you want to do is put them both in opposite angle. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with sword fighting, but there's something called guard. Guard is where you put your sword when you're waiting to fight, and when you're waiting to fight. So when you do that, now what we get into is, imagine you're ready to fight, but your swords are on opposite angle. Example, I can put one sword on one side, put the other sword on the other side. That conveys a meaning. But my swords are very, very, very skinny. You can't barely tell anything. Is that the story you're trying to convey? That your sword is elusive. You can't see it. I'm about to chop you. Or should I turn my sword a little bit to show you more information? So what I do is that from holding a sword, sword holding 101. Holding a sword, you hold it by the handle, and you are relatively, your sword edge is relatively along the line of your hand. What you want to do is that you want to thumb your sword. Take your thumb, put it in the back of your sword like that. So from here, move the sword so that the face is perpendicular to your arm. What does it mean? Well, it means that you're fighting German style. Why do I say that? Because a lot of German technique, you actually hold your sword like that, so then you can cut like that. It's a very interesting way of attacking, but for cosplay use, it looks really good. You see how much profile essence I have in this. Partnering up with how much I can use my body motion, you're then able to display more of your weapon by not doing a whole lot aside from putting your thumb on your weapon, like the Germans. So, that's one. And second is that, aside from just pointing it, what else can you do? You could also build that dynamics of the front and the back. So now, you're using one weapon for the front, one weapon for the back. It can work both ways. Pointing one towards you, pointing the second one away from you. This creates a dynamics of it. But the only issue is that it looks kind of boring because they're front and back and they're very, very, this kind of distance, right? Now what you want to do is, do the same. We're going to go back to normal handguard. Do the same thing. Rotate your body. Look at that information right there. You create the foreground with your sword here. I'm the midground, and that becomes the background. So you get this layer of motion, and you get this layer of information, like so. I'm still doing the same guard, low and high, but just doing it this way. And I'm already picking up a lot of information on all three sides. If you're a photographer, or let's say you're in a crowd position. A crowd meaning that you have one photographer in front of you, there's another one right there, there's another one right there, there's a whole bunch of other one right there. Using more space around you will allow you to maximize the viewing potential for everyone else. You don't have to move, but you're also serving everyone else as a model, as a display. So when you're trying to take photos, if you're in a con, and there's a lot of people taking photos of you, you want to make sure you get maximized photography chances because there might be some angle that they take that you don't know it looks good. And then it's fun once you get those. So once again, that, or what you can do is that once again, go into your action. So just don't so people say, oh, can you pose? Of course I can pose. Here you go. And that's it. Here you go. And that's it. That's boring. What you want to do is that imagine the heroism that you can do just from going from no guard. Let's say right now I'm technically no guard, right? Actually, that's a really good pose. So no guard, going into a guard, what you want to do is you want to do some sort of action, right? You want to do some kind of action. You want to do some emphasis into wow, because even though they're not taking a photo, they are still experiencing what you're doing. So the more little detail you can do to it to put that into the ultimate process of getting a photo, even if they don't take the photo, you're still treating them to an experience of the entire package, right? Does it take more energy to do that and more effort to do that? Of course it does. But at the same time, you have more fun, so why not? There's only so many cons in a year. You might as well maximize the fun, right? So, once again, what I did is that, let's say my sword is sheathed, you can draw it out in a way before going to your guard. You could glide your two weapons together before going to your guard. You can also create an audio experience by flashing the weapons. You can totally do that. Now, in a photo, why do you want to do audio? It makes no sense, right? However, let's just say I'm going to swing the other way around, and I'm going to be the photographer, and I don't know what's happening. Now, what I then do is that if I hear, look at what I'm trying to say that if there's a photographer around me who are just kind of wandering their own business, don't do anything, and suddenly you hear like that, you hear like that, you hear that sound. Sound attract people into kind of like a curiosity. From there, then it adds on to your display. Your display will have a start to an end. Meaning, you're just chilling, you're not doing anything, you're just kind of like, call it. When someone asks you to pose, create that welcoming environment by, of course, saying, yes, no problem, you can take my photo as much as you like, as long as I know you're doing it, right? Consent. And second is that you want to make sure that you create an experience for them while watching it. Either I can draw the crowd by doing a sound audio, and when they're taking photos, when they're done, if there's someone else looking, you can change your guard. You can rotate during your pose, because, well, don't do it too fast, because people have trouble taking a photo. You want to do it moving your body ever so slightly. Now what that does is, one, you allow people or the original photographer to get different angles. And of course, if your joints are locked up, you kind of free your body a little bit, so it does help your knees a little bit. So, that's mostly it for these two weapons. They're really chunky swords that allow you to build that little experience of forward and backward and side to side. So that is how you play with really kind of smallish, biggish, kind of chunky weapons. What if it gets smaller? What do we do? What are the purpose of even smaller weapons, and how do we, let's say, film them? One second, I'm going to put these back first. I don't know. Time check. 1 second, time check. Alright, so good guys. Only half of it. Alright, so. Absolutely next weapon is my ultimate favorite fighting combination. I often fight in a dagger and a rapier because I study historical martial arts. And I fight in these because, well, I got started because I was doing cosplay, I didn't know how weapon and armor work, and I don't know how to pose in them. So I started getting into medieval stuff, the real historical stuff, and how do I have like cool stuff, right? And that's when I started learning HEMA. HEMA allows me to understand the swords, understand the armor, and understand the body mechanics on how these things kind of work. So, we're going to be talking about, next, positive and negative, and the weight of it. So, the easiest part is the weight. The weight, they're very light weapons, you don't have to worry too much about them. You want to give a message that you're very flowy, you're very, very graceful, and you just move the weapon really nicely. And that you do by giving less information. You notice how my legs have been together the whole time? Because I'm giving less information. I'm moving more slowly, holding my sword very delicately, because this is the weight of a weapon. So you want to convey the feeling that you're moving very light object as if they were just moving in water. Do not move too fast. If you move too fast and they're light, your photographer will have no idea what they're taking because they're just you spinning around like a tornado, right? So move very gracefully. You want to relax your body, move with your weapon, and then just go into the Zen mode. Next, we're going to be talking about how your weapon is going to be a part of your body. So, what does it mean? Is that there's only so far you can reach with your hand. And there are linear positions where you can take. If my linear position, let's say were to go this way, then my weapon can go that way. Almost like a part of it, right? Like that. Or even like that. That become a part of it. And if you want, you can even do two sides before going into your guard or anything else that you want to do. Or if you want to convey the feeling that you're more, let's say linear, you give less information, you could also use your weapon as if it was the same line of motion as you are. I'm standing nice and straight, your weapon can go nice and straight. The classic salute. By putting a sword in front of you, you don't see much. Putting it on the side, you get more information like that. And of course your helmet looks a bit cooler. And if you want, you can also do something called a high guard. A high guard is you hold your sword up, and as if you're about to ready to attack, or it looks like you're about to get shot by lightning, really. By doing the high guard, you're able to then create an image where your photographer will be kind of forced to step backward. This gets rich, complicated in a way, because now by your photographer stepping backward, he needs more negative information. But now it's getting into is the negative information could be very interesting things happening in the background. If there's a waterfall there, if there's a cliff there, there's a doggo there. I don't know. But then there's a reason why your photographer want to step back, or you force your photographer or entice your photographer to take a few steps back. Because in your photo, the story in your photo, you want him to see the thing over there or see the thing over there. And now you can do like conveying a really long image. By him stretching out the image, he would take information of that because my point stretches the image that way. Same as here. If I have a high guard, then the image will be stretched that way. So it's very interesting when you make your photographer start moving. That is absolutely hilarious when they start doing it. And it gets exciting when they do that because it means that they're engaged in your photo. So it's a more, I guess, more of a difficult technique where your photographer has to kind of know what you're about to do, or they need the space to play with that, right? So just don't do that, everybody. There are many people when you actually hold your sword out straight there, they actually don't even take a picture of your sword. They just take a picture of that. So then you have to focus on, is your photographer moving? Are they asking for a simple shot? Or are they asking for a series of shots where they kind of want to play around with different things, right? So that it gets into is, you kind of have to like feel it out in terms of what they want and what you want to present. Once again, remember, cosplay is about the display of your costume. And you're here to be as true to your character to present to them as much as possible. So once again, play around with two different weapons, swing around with it, flow with your object in hand, and everything else will just come second nature. So, next weapon, the fun one. Once again, I'm going to do a time check. Alrighty, time check. Oh, we're so good. That's about half an hour in, so we're at 3/4 away. Next, we're then going to play with big shape stuff, and then we're going to get into the motion of spinning stuff. Now, let me just get into the fun stuff, which is a little bit more exciting because I think Now there's some of you out there I can tell that are getting a little bit tired. So let's just move our body around. Use it for you. So, the classic weapon that everybody thinks medieval weapon has is the holy flail. I love this thing. Flail is very, very, very difficult in order to take photo of, because no matter what you do, no matter how hard you hold it, they will just flop. Because that's what they do, flail flops. So what do you do with that? Every single different weapon has their own strengths and weaknesses. I can be pointing this towards you, and I can create that movement of foreground and background. Foreground and background. I love this thing. So that creates, instead of accentuating your body motion, you're accentuating your movement. Example, I'm just going to hold it in front of me, okay? I'm just going to hold it like a lance. So if I move my body, this thing doesn't move a lot because the shaft moves. But the relation of the flails, the little end bits, they do some really weird stuff because that's my body motion. Adding that on to your body motion, it becomes even more exciting. This thing is so much fun to swing around. But the only issue is that, be careful when you're swinging something around because there's friends around you. Be careful. Okay, so what happened is that these become very quick shots. If a photographer would want still shot, you have to be mindful that if you are going to be having a weapon like this, or like a sickle, or like a scythe that goes in 2 different directions, maybe you move 3 different directions or anything else, you have to remember, even your prop has a positive and the negative. You see how it creates a little, so here, so that's a positive space right there. Your weapon is a positive space, so positive, 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 positive. This is negative, that's negative, and whatever happens there is also negative. So by you using that, you can place yourself in the negative by you becoming that extra different information. Once again, gathering information. So that's my information right there. So I purposely leave a little bit of negative space behind me so then I have positive space, the dangling balls, behind me. So that becomes a whole silhouette. And also remember, the weight of the photo. I'm a very heavy object. This is a very light object compared to me with 3 heavy balls. So that becomes how much information you're having in one place compared to another. So once again, where is your positive and negative? How much positive and negative? And is it static or is it dynamic? So, enough of that. Let's swing this thing around. It's so much fun. So the reason why you want to swing it around is, well, first, tell your photographer, I'm going to swing my flail around, so stand about right there. Don't move any closer because I'm going to hit you. Warn them. And, look around them, see if there's any friends around. And then from there, by you doing very slow or different variation of speed of swinging, your photographer can choose what they want to take. There's a very high chance that you'll be swinging a whole minute and your photographer doesn't get anything because they're trying to read what you're doing. So when you're swinging something, do 5 of the same action in a sequence and then you do the different 5. Or you can swing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So at least your photographer will kind of see it more and more before they're like, oh, I like that shot right there. So you want to repeat yourself and be patient about it. Yes, it's very tiring, but when's the next time you actually get to swing something like this around? It's fun. So once again, you're going to burn a lot of calories, guys. So 1 swing, 2 swings, 3, and if you want to warn, you can tell your photographer, hey guys, I'm changing direction now. I'm going to go back outward. And then the other side. You can stop it and do it again. So then you're creating the information that you have for your photographer by you moving the thing around. And then they can choose, or they can be like, oh, can you do the last swing again? Yes, you can. Then you can keep playing around with it. Just make sure you keep swinging. Then that's what happens when you have really fun, engaging weapon that is lively. So this is very lively because there's a lot of things happening. Did I lose the ball? No, I'm good. Okay, cool. When you have a weapon that's lively, and it's meant to be lively, you want to have fun with it. You want to keep it alive. But when you have a weapon like the rapier right there, which is a very slender weapon, you want to keep it graceful and slender. And big chunky weapon, you want to display that as a big chunky boy. You. And you. Okay. So, let's put this away for a second because... oh my god. Alright. Two more guys. Actually, punch out. I think we're good. That was just 5 minutes. Okay, so what happened then is very commonly people will have shields. The classic medieval, Dark Ages, Middle Ages, Renaissance, even up to the World War I. I think 1 or 2, something like that. And even now, people technically still use shields. Like, you know, police and stuff like that. So I'm going to strap this on me first. Okay. So now, when you have something like a shield with you, this is becoming adding on to your mass. There's a few things you can do to it. If you want more mass, hold it, more profile. If you want less mass, hold it, less profile. So this becomes a more fun little thing that you can play with. And when you stick your hand out, you create more information in front of you, and you can play with a lot of things. So once again, I am going to use something that's a little bit smaller to kind of counteract it. Now, it's really weird to see a warhammer and a shield. Yeah, but they had it back then. So now what happened is, if you are going to be, let's say, you don't know if they're taking a foreground, background, or do you want a close-up, you can ask them. Let's say, hey guys, do you want a close-up, or do you want a half body shot? Do you want a full body shot? If, let's say, they want a close-up, then you want to focus the positive element, which is more information, into one sequence. Now, let's say, if you see a photographer holding his camera sideways, then give him sideways information, like that, or like that. That's sideways information right there. Foreground, background, middle ground here. You see that? That creates a landscape photo of an information. But if he's holding a camera straight up and down, then give him the up and down by you going stretching more, bringing it higher, playing around with the elements, and seeing what you can do. And let's just say, I don't know what to do with these. Fill in the space. Even if you open yourself up like that, it's a little bit more exciting than someone that does this, or like that. Right? So with big chunky things, you want to make it into, what if you have another body part into that. This thing is really big, but it doesn't mean that it always looks big. I mean, unless you're holding a giant ball, then of course that thing is big. Like a cannonball. Or if you're like, I don't know, like a titan holding a giant ball, I guess that thing's big. So by you using this appropriately in terms of the width of it and the information of it, you are then able to kind of turn this into almost like a little dagger kind of profile information, or you can turn it into another piece of it, right? There are times when I literally just hold it like that in front of me when I'm resting, and I put my weapon in front of me, because that gathers all the information towards my face. And if anyone wants to take a photo, this looks pretty good as a landscape or even as a portrait. They both can work pretty well. If you have a bigger weapon, then you want to counter your bigger offhand thing with it. So let's just say, what am I doing? Okay, back to my sword. If I have my sword again, this is a very interesting juxtaposition of a long weapon and a chunky thing. So you want to work around it. You want to play around the space. So imagine it's kind of like when you have one weapon, when you have a second thing that is very kind of stuck to you, very static, you want to revolve it around your body. Now, very easy. I could be holding my weapon like that, That looks pretty cool. That looks pretty cool. And that, if I rotate it around me, that also works really nicely as well. And I'm just rotating around it. If you put it behind it, then you kind of lost a lot of information. It's like, oh, what's happening here? So you can rotate it forward. You can rotate it like that. You can rotate it backward. So you see how my sword is still technically around that circle, right? You can put it behind, in front, or even forward and backward. Play around the forward and backward as well. So, once again, getting into how much information you're giving in terms of the length and depth. And of course, essentially, how much fun are you having? The more fun you have, the more better the photo becomes. Last two. My little part is in. Little. Okay, so once you have a really long weapon with you, what does it mean? It means that the information instantly, it's already drawing high, or I'm drawing it wide. You can do either or. You can force your photography to do a wide shot or a close shot. But this also, you're taking out a lot of information. And you can even take out more if you want to for whatever reason you want. Or you can actually develop a really interesting foreground, like a midground, close, like super close. I think I'm bumping my camera. Like that. You can also develop a lot of really interesting information by doing extreme foreground or just regular, or extreme foreground. Now when you say extreme foreground, you will notice that it's extremely tiring because that's a lot of weight in front of you. So if you can, and you get tired, use one part of your weapon, brace it on your body or something. I sometimes put it on my elbow to do the extreme that. So at least I have more point of contact on my weapon, so it's less tiring. Or, another thing I can do is that I can keep it very close to my body. It becomes, if I keep it close to my body, it becomes more appendages coming out from me. This becomes a more like calm, solemn kind of photo. By playing around with how your energy moves, you can either have a very static information, very static, very graceful, very neutral, or you can also have very exciting, very imposing, and very dynamic. So by using a very long weapon, you're then able to have more interesting information that you can give. But it also means that you're kind of doing both of the extreme. Because if not, then you're kind of just holding on your weapon onto like that. Very normally, which is like, it's a guard. Or if you're mostly forced to doing something like that. But never, 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 ever do something like that. You can barely see anything. If you ever catch yourself, let's say you're like, kind of half lazily striking a pose and you're like, it's good enough. Even if you ever try yourself doing that, at least turn your weapon to give more information. Or at least just do that. Give more information. And it doesn't take a lot of effort to do that. Turn your body, give more different kind of stuff to look at, and more dynamics. And I'm just literally chilling like that to me raising your weapon up. And remember the first topic of the presentation from when you're chilling to when you're getting a photo taken. If anyone asks me to come over and take a photo and I'm very quiet and all I do is this, nod, and then have my weapon out in front of them like that, that becomes a presentation. Once again, so I'm going to do it without talking. Just like that. There's a couple of different audio sequences with the tap, with the movement, with the up and ground, and all it is a very graceful up, salute, point, switch position, and guard. Doesn't take a lot. And of course, at the same time, you also get to kind of move yourself a little bit and get really interesting photos. Okay, As for one last very fun weapon, that gets a little bit more difficult because now it's a very small, delicate weapon that is meant to always point straight, but you're not supposed to point straight. And that is the gun. So, I'm going to put the I'll put the way first. Right here. All the plumes are here. Okay. So, next part, getting off into something like a little gun, like a little pistol, right? So when you have a very small little delicate object like this, it became almost as if it's two little daggers. So what does it mean? If you have two little daggers, you can still accentuate your body by doing something like that. You can still add on to your body emphasis in order to do a lot of things. But remember, never point, well, first off, never point a firearm into anybody else, because once it's gun safety law, right? And also, if you were to point yourself, like your gun at your opponent, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to use my ramrod. If I were to point at an opponent, there's not a lot of things to look at. But instantly, when I turn it in a way, so from here, nothing to look at, but from here, suddenly there's a lot of things to look at. Because it became a purpose. The story is that I'm already trying to shoot something, right? And if you're really trying to shoot someone and you do really those really cool close-up shots, I kind of rather you turn it out into a way that you still see the profile of the gun, but not entirely in the gun. And of course, a lot of times you actually, fun history fact is that back when they have knights, they step gun, but they don't shoot from far away. They go up to the person, right to the face, and then just pew onto them to deliver maximum damage. So you can deliver same information like that, almost as if you're pressing against that person. This will then become the foreground, the close-up. How do you develop that close-up? How does it look? It's how you can play around with smaller weapons. Or you can have fun. What does it do? When you have an object that has a mechanism to it, just like how the greatsword has weight, the rapier has fluidity, and the flail has the spinning, a gun has this mechanism. If you're remembering your weapon, whatever the story entails, if you need, you can even, let's say, pretend you're trying to ram your gun, right? You can pretend that you're doing something with it, interact with your object. When you're doing that, then your photographer can have more information to play with. And so once again, when you have dealt with a weapon, play with it. Feel what it is. When you hold on to the weapon, what is the weight of it? What do you do to it? If you move from front to the side, what does it do for you? And also, remember, how much fun are you able to demonstrate with your weapon to the audience? And how much are you conveying? Let's say, I'm going to go back to my rapier because it's fun. If I have my rapier, am I conveying the feeling of just nothing? Or am I conveying with a lot of things? Because by doing one thing, I can still have a lot of motion in play. So, 3 major things. 1 is the weight of it. Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it delicate? 2nd, information. Are you taking a lot of the side? Are you taking a lot of the top? Or are you taking a lot of the front and the back? Information. The more you take, and the more photographer that there's around you, you're able to deliver more angles of appreciation. And of course, the last one is that make sure that if your weapon or if whatever you have some sort of mechanical component to it, has some gimmick onto it, play around with it, showcase what it is. Because your weapon, it's what you're showcasing, but it's also you became the pedestal of your weapon. Or your weapon became the pedestal of your body language. So these are a couple of little quick points that you can use when you're holding different weapons or when you're making a new prop that you've never seen before. Play around with it. Can you swing it? Can you move with it? Can you do stuff to it? Can you have fun? And is it fluid? Is it a live weapon or is it a dead weapon? These are things to consider next time you're playing and posing with your weapons. Once again, Kinglis here from the Wanpans Armory, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next year. You're easily able to find my Instagram, wherever they kind of post my handle. If you have any questions, feel free, don't be shy, we're all friends here. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk. Well then guys, until next time, enjoy the rest of your con. See ya!